Now, just like this, the text looks kind of boring, and there's two ways to fix that. So one involves changing the text layer so you actually can't edit the text, and when you can keeps the text so you can still edit it. So because Green Machine is probably easier to misspell in 3129, I'm going to do the layer change one on the numbers. And what I'm going to do here is have it selected, go to Layer, Simplify Layer. And what that's going to do is, see the big T is gone, so now it doesn't think it's a text layer anymore. Photoshop thinks it's a big shape. And then now what we can do is we can go to Layer, Layer Style, Style Settings, and now here's where we can have a little fun with stuff. So if we go over to Bevel, for instance, you can do that and make it all funky like that. I'm not going to do that. You can also do Stroke, and that's a little better. So if we make this white, we can add a big white outline to it, and that looks a lot cooler. So yeah, let's do that. And now if we want to make this text pop without simplifying it, we can right click on it, say duplicate layer, and then we're just going to make the same thing behind it. And it's still selected. So when I highlight this text, I'm actually highlighting, no, not. Okay, we'll just do this way. So I'll highlight this text, and then I'll make it the same green. Oh yeah, if you do more colors, then you can actually sample from here. So that green. Okay, and now this is green, and that's kind of cool. But if you want to make that green pop, we have this green machine, copy behind it, and you can just use the arrow keys. You can just use the arrow keys. You have to have this move tool selected, and then you can move this out from behind it, and you can adjust that drop shadow a little bit. And you basically created a drop shadow with just having the same thing behind it, and that looks pretty cool. And you can also experiment with maybe swapping these. So the green, so the white's on top. Move that around. Yeah, that looks pretty sweet. So we'll keep that. Now, if we're going to add sponsor logos, those would actually probably go on the end. So let's move the 3129 to the middle. Oh yeah, actually that looks pretty sweet. So we can, oh, right, because I simplified it, I can't change the text, but I can still change the size because it's just another shape. So I'll just click the move tool again, and then I can drag that out. And put that there. Yeah, so I don't have any sponsor logos right now, but if I want to add a little more to this to make it pop a bit more, my favorite thing to do is add caution stripes, because it's a robot and robots are dangerous, and dangerous things need caution stripes. So let's go get a yellow, like maybe this one. Select this layer so when we make it, it'll come out on top. I'm going to go back to the custom shape tool, and then towards the bottom of this, and now this is all in Photoshop Elements, which is the most basic version of Photoshop that you can get, but it should have all this stuff pre-installed, all these cool shapes to choose from. So if you go all the way to the bottom, you'll find these are for tiling. You can also find them by going in here to tiles, but it has this awesome built-in caution stripe. So I'm going to go ahead and make this. I think it should be about that size. And if not, just to double check, I'm going to go to Image, Rotate. And I'm going to say 90-degree left in general, because that's going to flip the whole picture. I'm going to do Layer 90-degree left. And now it just is that one. And so I can put this here, and then scale it how I want. And that looks pretty nice. So we'll do that. And now a little trick, because this all looks sort of fake, because it's all just big blocks of color. If you want to weather it a bit, like make it look all dirty and sort of more realistic as paper decals can get, go ahead and do this. Do the same thing we did before, where we went to Layer, Simplify our Layer, and now I can draw on it with a brush. And so what I have here is, if you go to, you'll start on basic brushes. This is what it has by default. But if you click on this arrow, you can choose from all these. And I like doing dry media and choosing something like maybe this guy here. And make it this good size. And I have a really low opacity, so it's not going to show up a ton. But when I draw on this like this, it'll come through like that. Although, I'm going to undo that, because right now I have, remember, I have view snap to grid, so that's why I made a big right angle that looked really weird. So I'm going to uncheck that. And actually I'm just going to turn off the grid entirely. Size this up to like that big. There we go. And now you can sort of add grime and gritty stuff to it. And actually I'm going to undo all that and try using a bigger brush. Maybe this one. And yeah, so you can sort of experiment with all this. That looks pretty ugly too. Let's make this really big. And go back to that brush we had before. Really big again. There, that looks a lot better. Yeah. And I mean, if that doesn't look right to you, if it's not your thing, then by all means, it's definitely a personal preference thing. So this is sort of what we come up with, and you can imagine if we had sponsor logos over here, it would look a little more dense. But it's looking pretty nice. At least pretty nice for, I don't know, half hour of whatever I've been doing. Maybe it's been longer than a half hour. I haven't really been keeping track of time. But let's say we're done. But we're going to want one of these to go on the other side too, right? So we're not going to want to flip this whole thing, or else we're going to have Green Machine backwards and 3129 backwards, and that's just going to look weird. So what we're going to do is we're going to choose all the shape layers. So that includes our little caution stripe. Have these all together with, yes, this is the caution stripe, these are the holes we cut out, and this is the background. I'm going to shift and then select all these. Right click, merge layers. And now this is all one big shape. So if I hit this eyeball to turn it on and off, you can see this is the stuff I've selected. So what I'm going to do here, I'll go ahead and turn the grid on so I can place these next to each other. I'm going to go to Layer, Duplicate Layer, or you can just right click on it. That's fine. And now, if I grab it, I have this thing. Bleh. I'll put it there, and then I'll go to Image, Rotate, Flip Layer Horizontal, and then boop. I have the same thing, but backwards. So now, to bring the text in, all I have to do is duplicate this layer again. And now you can sort of use the grid lines to line it up. So I select this. Use the grid lines to line it up sort of how it is on either side. And no one can really see both sides zero at the same time, unless they're Superman. So you really don't have to have this lined up perfectly, but that was close enough. And then for these, just remember that we have two separate layers here. So you're going to want to shift select and duplicate both of them at the same time. And now you can grab it and put it there-ish. And you're pretty much done. So just a quick note when you're printing these out, I like to use a really thick, almost cardstock paper, and what that does is it gives you like a really nice sheen. It lets the colors come out. If you print on construction paper or printer paper rather, you're just going to end up with something that looks a little. The colors aren't going to be as bright, and it's going to tear easier. Now the other option, and this is something we tried the very first year, and that's we printed it out on sticker paper. And that's good, except when you put it on, it has to stay on because the adhesive is really, really strong, and it's going to be a pain to take off. And also, doesn't have the same sheen as the cardstock paper does. So that's what I like to use. And now, if you had say you had a really big, long strip of this, although this is pretty long by itself, it's going to be harder to cut the holes in it when you print it. So one thing you can do is you can just in Photoshop make things as separate pieces. So maybe this one would be shaped sort of like a C, and you'd have separate stuff on it, and that way you would basically print these out separately so you knew where to cut, and it would make putting them on a lot quicker. Hopefully some of that made sense. Hopefully some of all this made sense. So in the future you can make your own decals, make them look pretty cool, and I think that's it. Thanks.